Greetings, folks. Joseph Kursky here with you to talk about how to do some double hazards analysis in ArcGIS Online. Now, overlay analysis has been a mainstay in GIS instruction for many, many years. I'm nudging you forward in this video, in this tutorial, for looking at data and doing this kind of analysis in the online environment. Now, we're going to do a little bit of work on our county layers, which I got from this county's Boulder County, Colorado data portal. We've done a little bit of figuring out where the major geologic hazards were, and also you saw me do floodway filtering because not all of the county is a floodplain. That would be very bad. So we've now looked at where true floodplains are and also major geologic hazards. So we can eyeball it and say, well, there are a few polygons that intersect both of these areas, but look, we've got an intersect tool under overlay inside ArcGIS Online. And so our input layer, in this case, is intersect. It doesn't really matter which layer we put in first. So I'm going to put the geologic hazards layer in there. But you know what? Some of the outcomes of our 2013 major flood in this area was that the floodplains really weren't the extent of the flood. They were far beyond the original floodplain. So you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to buffer the floodplains, and this is another analysis tool. I'm going to buffer the floodplains by 200 meters to get a wider zone. I'm going to call it buffered floodplains by 200 meters, just so I know that that's what number I used when I did the original analysis. I always like to do that. Okay, and the environment settings are important when you're doing analysis in ArcGIS Online. Make sure you're not analyzing the whole world if you're truly just looking at a local area. Okay, so, interesting. I'm going to use the dissolved method. Why? Because if I use non-dissolved, look, I get a lot of little polygons when I buffer. But if I use the dissolve function, I get this nice clean buffer. So I'm going to use, for my overlay analysis, the dissolved floodplains rather than just the buffered floodplains. So buffered, dissolved floodplains. And now I can eyeball and see where these things intersect. So I always like to do that. Don't just click, 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 and there's my results. But what is your prediction on where these intersections occur? Make sure you know your data. That's very important to all GIS analysis. So I'm going to remove my undissolved floodplain buffers and just use my dissolved floodplains and my geologic hazards layer, which is already filtered for major geologic hazards. Very good. So I'm going to select both of those things. My overlay settings, I'm going to say overlay type intersect, give it a meaningful name, be organized about your data when you're using GIS, understand when you create these, what content is in them by your descriptive names, and look at the processing extent and maybe estimate the number of credits. 0.062 credits required here. So I've submitted my tool to the ArcGIS Online system, and it succeeded. And now let's go ahead and look at the intersected polygons, and let's go ahead and symbolize those in some sort of maybe bright red. How about that? That way we know that it's different from the layers below it. And let's even make the outline color a reddish color as well. Very good. Now let's go ahead and zoom into those areas that I eyeballed earlier, and now truly those are the intersected areas. Now in a later tutorial, in another video and other tutorial, I actually have, okay, if we're going to notify these people in these hazardous areas where doubly hazardous areas are, we want to know if there's population in those areas. So in another video, and we're going to save and decide when to share it and who to share it with, in another video I talk about how do you enrich those polygons now with population, and also group quarters, people living in nursing homes or retirement communities. So I'm going to save my map so that you can actually look at it as well and share it so that you can see what I've done here. Powerful to be able to do this in the ArcGIS Online environment. It's saying, hey, Joseph, you've got a couple layers that you created in the interim that are not shared, so you better share those as well, so I am. Classic overlay operations in ArcGIS Online. Thanks for being with me, and think about how you might be able to use these tools in your own work, teaching and research. Thanks.